In the world of combat sports, where legends are etched into history and rivalries ignite the fiercest of battles, few matchups could ever command the kind of anticipation reserved for this one. Mike Tyson, the former heavyweight champion, whose punches echoed like gunshots across decades, a man whose ferocity and power redefined the sport of boxing. On the other side, Georges Rush St Pierre, the Canadian mixed martial artist celebrated for his technical brilliance, precision, and relentless drive, a pioneer whose mastery of multiple disciplines carved his name into the annals of the UFC. Two warriors from different realms, each dominating their domain with styles as distinct as fire and water. Tyson, a juggernaut of raw power and explosiveness, capable of ending a fight before the crowd even settled into their seats. St Pierre, a tactician with an almost mathematical approach to combat, blending striking, grappling, and strategy with a seamless elegance that left opponents bewildered. The mere thought of these two icons crossing paths felt like the stuff of fantasy. Yet here it was, materializing before the eyes of an audience that had long debated who would prevail if the boundaries between their disciplines were torn down. There was something about Tyson's presence that never dulled, even after all those years away from the prime of his reign. He remained a spectacle muscle coiled tight, eyes radiating that same intensity that once broke men's spirits before his fists ever touched them. But this wasn't just another comeback attempt. It was a chance to test his legacy against one of the finest combat athletes the world had ever seen. And for St Pierre, this was no ordinary bout. This was a challenge that transcended sport, an opportunity to prove that his mastery of technique could overcome the pure, unfiltered power Tyson possessed. Fans around the world buzzed with speculation. Could Tyson's devastating punching power find its mark against the nimble, elusive St Pierre? Or would St Pierre's precision and unmatched conditioning wear down the man who once ruled the ring with an iron fist? The styles clashed, not just physically but philosophically. Tyson's approach was rooted in brutality and fear, his offense a relentless storm meant to overwhelm. St Pierre, by contrast, embodied control, his game built around dismantling opponents with calm, calculated precision. The buildup alone was unlike anything seen before. Interviews, press conferences, even casual conversations became battlegrounds of speculation. Old-school boxing enthusiasts insisted Tyson's power would crush the mixed martial artist's defenses. MMA purists countered that St Pierre's adaptability and skill set would dismantle the aging boxer. Both camps had their points, but no one truly knew what would happen once the two men finally stood across from each other, eyes locked, each reading the other's movements with predatory intensity. As the fight date approached, the hype reached a fever pitch. Every detail was dissected training footage, scrutinized, words twisted and interpreted for hints of doubt or overconfidence. Tyson's trainers spoke of rekindled hunger, a focus unseen in years. St Pierre's camp preached refinement, skill honed to a razor's edge. The air around the event crackled with anticipation, a restless energy only heightened by the fighter's silence as the night drew near. The lights dimmed, the arena roared, and the stage was finally set. Tyson's footsteps were heavy, deliberate, his gaze burning with a familiar fire. St Pierre emerged with that calm, calculated look, a man who thrived on dismantling giants, regardless of their reputation. As the referee called them to the center, the world seemed to hold its breath. And then, with nothing but the thin barrier of time separating the buildup from the battle itself, the bell rang. The first round unfolded like a vivid clash of ideologies, both men testing the waters, their approaches colliding with a force that shook the audience's expectations. Tyson came forward like a man determined to crush all doubt, his fists slicing through the air with terrifying precision. St Pierre danced around him with a fluidity that spoke of years spent mastering the art of evasion and counterattack. To the casual eye, it was Tyson's aggression versus St Pierre's finesse, but there was more lurking beneath the surface, strategies twisting and evolving with every feint and strike. Tyson pressed in, unleashing hooks and uppercuts meant to end things quickly. Yet St Pierre's footwork carried him away from danger, his counters sharp, calculated. A low kick buckled Tyson's leg just slightly enough to stir murmurs through the crowd, but not enough to break his focus. The boxer's resilience was undeniable, his ability to absorb punishment and keep moving forward, nothing short of unnerving. But St Pierre was not aiming for a sudden knockout. He was dissecting Tyson's approach, searching for gaps, waiting for the right moment to exploit them. Round 2 began with the same ferocity, but something shifted. Tyson's punches were still powerful, but St Pierre's strikes had grown bolder, his counters landing with greater frequency. The former heavyweight champion seemed to grow frustrated, his relentless assault meeting air more often than flesh. St Pierre's training had prepared him for this, drawing Tyson into a rhythm, a pattern he could unravel. And then, something unexpected happened. St Pierre, instead of continuing to evade, stepped forward with a suddenness that took everyone by surprise. He shot for a takedown, his speed and precision catching Tyson off guard. The crowd gasped as Tyson was driven to the canvas for the first time in his storied career. Tyson's fists were deadly in the ring, but grappling was an entirely different battlefield, one where St Pierre thrived. Pinned beneath the mixed martial artist's weight, Tyson's muscles strained against unfamiliar territory. St Pierre's mastery of positioning kept him secure, his control over Tyson's limbs meticulous. For a moment, it seemed like the fight would end right there, with St Pierre imposing his will on a man who once seemed unstoppable. But Tyson's defiance flared, his struggle fierce enough to force Pierre to adjust. What followed was a brutal scramble, Tyson's raw strength proving formidable even against the grappling expert. He managed to force a break, pushing St Pierre off him with sheer determination. As they rose to their feet, the audience erupted, half in awe of Tyson's resilience, half stunned by St Pierre's audacity. The dynamic had shifted, a dangerous balance now tilting back and forth with every exchange. But St Pierre had seen something during the grappling exchange, something Tyson's fans were desperate to overlook. Beneath that powerhouse exterior, Tyson's stamina was draining faster than expected. Each minute spent wrestling chipped away at the endurance he relied on to launch those thunderous strikes. St Pierre knew it, and more importantly, Tyson seemed to know it too. Round 3 began with a subtle, almost imperceptible hesitation from Tyson. His punches were still fast, still dangerous, but that unrelenting aggression had cooled. St Pierre's strategy was taking root, forcing Tyson to fight on terms that were no longer his own. The crowd sensed the shift, their cheers mingling with anxious murmurs. Yet even as St Pierre's control grew, there was something unsettling about Tyson's eyes. That intensity had not faded. If anything, it had sharpened, his movements now tempered by a grim, stubborn resolve. St Pierre circled him with precision, his strikes flowing in calculated bursts, but Tyson refused to be broken. And then, just as St Pierre thought he had the rhythm fully deciphered, Tyson unleashed something entirely unorthodox, an explosive combination paired with a sudden lunge that drove them both into the ropes. The crowd roared, the air electric with a tension that clawed at the senses. St Pierre's composure held, but the unexpected maneuver had rattled him. Tyson's fists rained down, not with the same untamed fury of his youth, but with a focused ferocity born of experience. And as the round drew to a close, it was clear Tyson had something left, something the crowd had underestimated. But St Pierre wasn't done adapting. And the moment Tyson realized, that would be the moment everything truly changed. The 4th round began with an air of unease, the crowd torn between admiration and disbelief at the spectacle unfolding before them. Tyson's ferocity had been tempered, his aggression now filtered through a lens of strategy rather than pure brutality. St Pierre, however, remained relentless, his footwork darting with the same sharpness that had carried him through countless battles. He could sense Tyson's stamina slipping, could feel the weight behind those punches growing just a little less punishing. But the danger had not faded. If anything, Tyson's awareness of his own limits made him more unpredictable. It was then that St Pierre decided to press his advantage. He launched into a sequence of strikes designed to keep Tyson on the defensive, low kicks snapping against legs already strained by fatigue. Each strike chipped away at the former champion's resolve, but Tyson's defiance refused to yield. His counters were still fierce, and the crowd marveled at the way he continued to find openings where none seemed to exist. And yet, it was clear Tyson was being pulled into deeper waters. St Pierre's game plan was meticulous, his precision a thing of beauty. As the minutes stretched on, Tyson's shoulders heaved with the effort of keeping pace. His endurance was waning, the accumulation of blows and grappling exchanges wearing him down in ways no opponent ever had. But then, just when it seemed St Pierre's strategy had succeeded in taming the beast, Tyson unleashed something primal. A sudden burst of power, fists crashing forward with the desperation of a man who refused to be cornered. One of those punches clipped St Pierre's chin, sending him stumbling back with eyes wide from the impact. It was a reminder that Tyson's power remained a threat, even when drained. St Pierre steadied himself, but the blow had rattled him more than he cared to admit. Tyson seized the moment, pressing forward with everything he had left. His strikes came faster, wild and reckless, but devastating all the same. The crowd erupted as Tyson drove St Pierre into the ropes, the sudden resurgence of violence defying all logic. Yet as Tyson swung with the kind of intensity that would have crushed lesser fighters, St Pierre's mind remained sharp. Even under the onslaught, his instincts guided him, weaving through the chaos with a precision born of countless hours of training. And then, in a split second of clarity, St Pierre made his move. He ducked beneath a vicious hook and drove forward, his shoulders slamming into Tyson's midsection with the force of a battering ram. Before Tyson could react, St Pierre had swept him off his feet and driven him to the canvas. The crowd gasped as the mixed martial artist secured his position, his grappling expertise rendering Tyson's struggle futile. St Pierre transitioned seamlessly, his technique flawless as he maneuvered Tyson into a chokehold. The former heavyweight champion thrashed with everything he had, muscles straining against the inevitable. But St Pierre's hold was unbreakable, his focus unshaken. Moments later, Tyson's resistance faltered. His hand tapped against the mat, the gesture one of reluctant surrender rather than defeat. The referee intervened, signaling the end of a battle that had pushed both men to their limits. As the cheers and applause surged through the arena, St Pierre rose to his feet, his chest heaving from the effort. Tyson remained on the mat for a moment longer, his gaze distant but not defeated. When he finally stood, there was no animosity between them, only the unspoken respect shared between warriors who had given everything. The crowd's ovation grew louder as Tyson extended his hand, his expression stripped of bravado, leaving only the man beneath. St Pierre accepted it without hesitation, their handshake a gesture more powerful than any punch or submission. They had tested each other, and in doing so, transcended their own legends. But as the cameras captured the aftermath, as interviews swirled and analysts dissected every moment, Tyson's words carried the most weight. With a smile both weary and genuine, he admitted that the fight had opened his eyes to something beyond mere power. St Pierre's skill, his composure, had revealed the gaps Tyson never knew existed. It was not just a victory for St Pierre, it was an evolution for both men. And as they left the ring, their rivalry transformed into something far more profound. Respect.